mother, my mother got married in the Albanian church because that was his church. But then my mother was from the St. Nicholas. So we always, when we came here, my dad didn't come with us because of course, he had a business. He didn't come very often. We used to come either on the train or on the bus or whatever. They didn't have buses much. Most of we came on the train. And we come to Jamestown for all any holiday services or to visit our grandparents. My grandparents belonged to the Greek church, so we all went to the Greek church for all the services. So as we grew into St. Nicholas, so.
Hey, when you were growing up in Olean, there's not a large Greek community,
No,
as you mentioned.
very few Greeks.
Was that noticeable in school in the sense that they kind of call you out? I don't want to say persecuted you, but just would you?
You mean like in Olean?
Yeah, Olean did
No.
the school system. You didn't. They just integrated.
No difference at all. I don't even think people. Sometimes people don't even know when you say you're Albanian.
Yeah.
In fact, once I had one girl I worked with. She was kind of not too swift, but she said to me once, "Gee, I can't believe you don't have white hair and blue and pink eyes." I said, "Why would I have that?" She said, "Aren't you an albino?" I said, "No." Sometimes they don't even know. Even now, when you tell people what are you, they always assume you're Greek, But, of course, I'd say my heritage, so I say no, I'm not Greek. I'm Albanian, but I'm Greek Orthodox, and I belong to the Greek Church. But yeah.
So you came here in 15, 15 years old, Jamestown, Jamestown High School.
Jamestown High School.
And tell me about the church at the time. Was there Sunday schools? Was there Sunday school at the church, or did you go to St. Luke's?
No, we didn't go to. Once we moved to Jamestown, we didn't really go to Sunday school. As for us, we did because when we lived in Olean, we went to the St. Stephen's Sunday School, but we just didn't participate in all the other occasions. We didn't belong to the church. The priest understood that. We just went for Sunday school purposes. Then, so we already learned Sunday school from there. When we moved to Jamestown, we really didn't have a Sunday school at that time. And eventually, as we started getting more young children, they started, I think it was Terry's wife, Terry Janethis' wife, who started a Sunday school. And then eventually, as I got older, I became a Sunday school teacher then. So it was like 16 years old and 17 years, and then I was Sunday school teacher for 30 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so just before I got sick, I gave it up, and so and one of the other girls, Chris Chironis, took it over, and she's done a wonderful job. And so we've had a good Sunday school. So we've had a lot of years. Greg's boys were in my Sunday school, and both of his boys, my nephews, and the little girls in the church. There's quite a few of them that have raised in the church by the Sunday school. Once we got a regular, but we had other priests too, and then they were more after Father Janethis retired.
So talk to me about the genealogy of some of the priests. We were kind of,
Gosh, let's see.
yeah, so Father George Janethis. Do you remember the next kind of ones?
Oh gosh, well, we had Father Alex. I forget what his last name is. We had
It was George
George Alexson. There was Father Bacillus, Nicholas Bacillus. He was young priest, and we were his first parish. In fact, almost every one of the priests that have come were like a first parish for them, a stepping stone. They here for a while and then they move on. But of course, I think Father Bacillus really liked it here, but he had problem. He had his wife. They were from the south, and they had a child, and they had one child, and they had another child, and she passed away, and his wife was sentimental for home, so he eventually left. But now he's in a big church down south somewhere in Virginia. Is it Richmond, Virginia? Yeah. And there's Father George, and then let me think. What's the one that had the blonde hair, curly hair? Yeah.
Father Andrew?
Father Andrew.
Malaharis.
Father Malaharis. I'm trying to think. I can't tell them in order now because we've had so many different ones. We had Father, his son is a really important person in the diocese. Alexson?
Father Carluccius?
Yeah, Carluccius, Father Carluccius. Yeah, Father, yeah. And Carluccius, I think his name was Alex Carluccius. He was a single, he was a widower. Yeah, because his son is really high in the diocese. Gosh, isn't that awful? And I can't remember all of them. Of course, let's
At
see.
some point, Father Nick comes into the picture.
Father Nick, of course, Father Nick Raphael. He was here 25 years, so you know that's the big part of part of it, you know. And I,
Let me ask a
That's it,
question, because
yeah.
regarding Father Nick, and again, this is my era,
yes,
he was very visible in the community.
Very much,
involved
very
in
much.
housing and
the
justice and
Susans
stuff like that.
and St.
Was
Susans.
that by his design, or was it a conscious decision by the church to have the priest go out into the community to be more active? Do you know if that was?
I think it was more on his, some of our priests that were Greek-speaking priests that came here, they didn't go out so much because they concentrated on the church itself. But Father Nick, of course, was born in America, and he was, you know, and he was very, you know, much into the community. He joined the ecumenical, whatever they meet with it. He met many of the priests there, and he became very active in the church. And then, of course, he was close with Father, the priest from St. James, the one that was passed away.
Atia.
Yeah, Father.
Atia.
Oh yeah, Father Atia. I knew it was Father Atia. And together, I guess they decided to try to make something like the St. Susans, and of course the whole history of the St. Susans. You know, more or less, it was his idea. Always wanted that. He used to always say, "I'd like to see him have somewhere where the people could go if they need help and all that." So that was very clear in his mind to do it. And with Father Atia, they decided together. They worked to get that together. With the St. James Parish helped, and in our church, the ladies, you know, mostly ladies, because they always use the ladies in the community. Usually, the ladies do all the things, although the men are in charge of the board and stuff like that. But it depended a lot on the ladies.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
How does the church set up? You mentioned the sort of a diocese or a.
yeah.
How is it? Are you part of the Greek?
Diocese, yeah. It's broken out into different sections. I don't know the exact way, but we're part of the Detroit diocese. So we have a bishop that's in charge. His name is Nicholas. He's stationed in Detroit. At one time, we were part of the was it Cleveland?
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh. We were part of Pittsburgh, and we had the bishop that was part of Pittsburgh. Then they broke up the diocese. They're broken all up. I think they do that same like in the Catholic Church. Each have their own areas, you know. Like Father, I think the Greek diocese in Detroit goes all the way down sometimes into the south.
Mm.
Yeah. So yeah, but we're part of the Detroit diocese right now, and so yeah. So we rules. He's the boss.
Do you remember the old church itself?
Mhm.
And what do you remember about that old church?
Oh, gosh, so many memories.
Can you
Gosh.
describe it?
Well, the church itself,
Yeah.
it was very small church, and in fact, it's still there. They've never torn it down because sentimental reasons. You hate to turn it down, tear anything down. But it was very, very small. In fact, they had a choir. The choir was upstairs, and a choir loft, and then the church itself was small, but it was. They had seating, but it was funny because the men sat on one side and the women sat on the other side, and we had like candles in the church, have candles, and you walked up, they all become the Greek dancers, and they go to the Sunday school, you know. So it's a new surge for us, I think. I'm sorry I'm not there to see it because I feel it's growing back again, getting, you know, we're not going to lose our generations. For a while there, we were worried. Gee, what are we going to do someday, you know, but it seems like it's going. And of course, in our church right now, we have several people, they're Orthodox, but they're different nationalities. Yeah. They're not all, there's Russian, there's Syrians, there's Lebanese, there's Albanians, you know, and there's, of course, Greek people. But still, some of the old Greek people have passed on too. We don't get as many people that come from out of town as they used to come. It's more the actual people that live right here in Jamestown, or, you know, there's Warren. A lot of people come from Warren and Kane and that area, some in Pennsylvania. So the area it's kind of hard for the priest because it's not just a church here in Jamestown that you have to cater to all the people. Anybody that's on the outlying areas, the priest has to travel to go see them and visit with them. And then Father Nick started the tradition of having it. He got permission with St. Stephen's to they open their church on Saturday and allow us to have a service there. In fact, when my dad died, we had St. Stephen's was the church he was buried from, but the Orthodox priests came and they had the service that was Orthodox service and everything. It wasn't Episcopal where we were the church, So I think that's what we've had now with the so many people that have passed on, the older people, but I think there's a surge of new people, younger people that are, coming back to the church there, I think it's good,
You had no advance notice that we were coming
No.
at all. And as we've been chatting here and bringing up some memories, what's the question you think that Greg Peterson should be asking you?
Oh, gosh. I don't know. I mean, it's a long history. The church has a long history, and it's kind of different. It's not like, the churches around here that they've been here for years and years. Like you said, the Swedish church. These churches have been in Jamestown for years. All these large churches. I think we came in as a little church in the middle of everything, and a lot of people didn't even know anything about the church itself or the people, the Albanian people. But as the time, if you read, even the lady that writes articles in that Gazette, she talks about, the market, the market down in Square. Many of the people were immigrants in my parents' generation. They worked at the market down in the Brooklyn Square, and they opened up restaurants. A lot of the Greek people opened up restaurants, or they were Albanians, like the Brooklyn restaurant and a lot of the bars and stuff. There were the restaurants, what did they call, Spanish Grill, and all of them. They were all mixed, though. They were Albanians and Greeks both, So the community is filled with the older generation was a lot of people, but they were mixed Greeks and Albanians. I just say it, I don't know how you could really say that. We weren't separated. Everybody was friends. Everybody was intermarried. Yeah.
I just think it might take, and I'm personalizing a lot, but whether it was the Demuses, the Depuses, the Taines, the Genethuses.
And they all belonged to now the Taines belonged to the Albanian church, but all the other ones you mentioned belonged to the Greek church because their parents were from the Greek church, like of course Terry came with his father here, and then the Demuses and all that. Their parents were here too, part of the Albanian community, part of the first church that was started. Yeah.
You're a fount of knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I been raised all these years, raised in the church, strictly in the church, and never left. So, my family was very close to the church. My grandparents were especially my grandmother was very strict in the church and everything. And all traditions we learned from our grandparents. Everything, Easter time we knew. Like fasting and how to fast and what we could eat and what we couldn't eat,
Was that your social life growing up?
Absolutely, that's what I've said from the
school,
beginning.
That time period, just sort of.
Yeah, it was church people. Actually, when I moved here, I didn't know anybody in Jamestown High School. There was the Taine girl and the Fords. They were all Albanian girls, but they belonged to the Albanian church. But when you came here, we were the only Albanians that were in the high school. There weren't too many, and then we just kind of met. I knew the one girl from my church was from my church, so I was friends with her, and together we've been friends up all these years since the time I met her in high school. I knew her from before anyway because we came every holiday for Easter and Christmas and anything. We came to church here in Jamestown. So like this Connie Magnoli's my friend. She's the same as me. We're the same age, but we grew up the same in the church. She was a little girl. I was a little girl, but she lived in Jamestown, but I lived in Olean. But when I'd come, I'd know her. And so same thing with all the kids, all of them. You knew each other even though you weren't here all the time. I wasn't in the church until when I came in when I was 15. But
so, one of the people we're trying to interview is John Regas.
Yes.
And what's John's role in all of this?
Well, John was one of the ones. John Regas was one of those ones that were from Coudersport, and he supported the church with everything with his family. but they didn't come all the time, but you knew they were in the background, just like the other, there was other people in the community that lived in Bradford and all that. Liz probably knows a lot of them, because Liz's family was at the same time too. Her father came the same way, but he was one of the Greek men that came, and he had a restaurant. Did your father own a restaurant? And after he passed away, her mother Bessie took care of the restaurant, and but she belonged to the church, stayed in the church, and Liz and her sister were raised in the church. She was the next younger generation after that, after us.
So technically, within this region, St. Nick's would have been his church.
Absolutely, it is his church.
It is his church.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
So he is part of our community, just
And
like
the
I
only
said.
thing closer from there is something in Pittsburgh?
Buffalo. Some
Buffalo?
people go to Buffalo, and some go to. There's an Erie church, but it seems to be they don't go there. I don't know how many people that in Pennsylvania are that go to the Erie church, but basically, yeah.
So they have quite a
Quite a
geography here.
Well, that's why I said about these priests, when they come, they don't have just one little community. They have to do the outlining areas too. Anytime it was a special holiday or something, it was a special tradition holiday, a church holiday, the priest would have to travel. Like when we lived in Olean, the priest, Father George, would come with one of the chanters, and they would come and visit us every so often and tell us what the church, and make sure everything was we were following the church rules and doing, and so he'd come and visit. So we'd expect the priest was going to come. They'd let us know we were going to come and visit. So he would come and visit, and we'd talk, and my family and everything, and we knew they were the priests. We knew that our church was here, and our faith was here. We had to stay close to our faith, which is good. And I'm really proud to say, like my brothers too. I have 3 brothers, and they have the same. They all married outside of the church, but all of them have turned Orthodox. My sister-in-laws are all Orthodox and follow the rules, and all the kids have been the same. In fact, we just had a baptism just Saturday for one of my nieces just got baptized. So we've stayed within the church, and many of the families have done the same. Like Greg's mother-in-law and her father-in-law, Chris. You probably remember Chris Constantine. Do you ever remember?
I do.
Yeah, that was his father-in-law, and he married Athena, who was from the Albanian church, and he was from the Greek church, but they were both Albanians, and then lit the candle in the front of the altar there. They didn't have like in the back or anything, so it was people would coming into church and light a candle and go out, and so it was, and of course everybody knew everybody, so it was, but it looked just like our church looks now, because the icons in that they used were the old icons from the old church are now that they put up on the iconostat. It's how it looks in the church when it's with the doors and that you can't see into the altar really. And I guess only a priest can go in the altar, and then only men can go in, unless you're approved as a lady. The lady can go in and clean the altar, but they have to be approved by the diocese, I guess.
By the bishop.
Yeah, by the bishop allows a lady go in. Otherwise, they don't let ladies in. They're just men, and so those are kind of
the church was small. Would you
very
say
small,
what,
but
capacity maybe 50?
I'd say that maybe just a little bit, about 50. We had quite a few people though, but everybody went to church. It was always full, especially at Easter time. My gosh, you couldn't even find a seat or anything like that. It was very small. And Greek church is kind of separated. There's the entrance, and then the part you come in just to start, then to go into the church proper, and then to go into the actual altar part is different. So, but it was beautiful. But we didn't have stained glass windows or anything like we have now. When it was very small, we'd had. Well, let's see if I can just think of it. At the front of the church, there was where they used to have the men would stand and say, they chanters. In those days we had chanters that sang, and we had a choir, but Terry Janethis started the choir at that time. So whatever age group he was, and he was married and young married man, and he started the choir, and then we had quite a few people in the choir. The young people learned to be in the choir. And I can remember as a child, the funniest part is the services were all done in Greek. And of course, being Albanian, we didn't know Greek, but you knew what was going on by being there all the time. Like my grandparents, they would, we learned a lot of what the church service itself. We knew when to do the cross, when to do everything, even though we didn't know when the priest was doing it. So, but as a children, you learn that, and a lot of us were very, very close to the church because there was everything. They had religious things. Everything. To me, even now, everything in the church was our social life. Because we knew each other, all the people knew us, and in those old days, people used to stay in touch together a lot. You'd have a name day. Someone has a certain name, and they celebrate those name days. Well, people would go visiting after church. Everybody'd go to everybody's house who had that name day and visit. So all day long you had people coming in and out. It was always busy socially again.
So they had Athena Day, and people would come to your house after church
Yeah.
all day just to visit?
Yeah.
That's
Actually,
a name day?
it was a name day mostly was the names. Like Athena is not really a religious name. There's no Saint Athena or anything. But if you were Saint John or George, you could maybe have 25 people going in and out of your house all day because they were the big holidays. People that were named Nicholas or John or, by actual saints' names. Yeah, so.
St. Gregory's huge.
Yeah. They have St. Gregory, but the people knew automatically whose names were who because they were all close. So they would come visit, and you'd serve them coffee, and they had a little liquidy stuff, like a jelly stuff they'd serve in a dish. They use those little dishes, and people come and they say congratulations, it's a happy day. It's almost like a birthday.
So that's part of name day, and then you had dancing was a big part of your world?
Yes, very much. In fact, do you ever remember the Balkan
I'm
dances?
just going to ask you about that. No, I don't. Tell me about that. What is it?
Well, we had decided to have this, actually, it was a big thing. We had talked about it. There was a group of us that talked, and Terry was like mostly in charge of the starting of it. So we decided we were going to call it the Balkan dance because it comes back to that nationality again. We wanted all our people, plus the ones from the Albanian church and everybody to be included. So if you said it for Greek dance, of course, everybody always called it the Greek dance. But we said, we'll call it the Balkan dance. That includes everybody, the Albanians and everything. So we started the Balkan dance, and we got the Hotel Jamestown. We decided we were going to have it very big and special. So we invited the whole community. So we had advertisements come to the Balkan dance. We sold tickets. We did everything, and for years we had it. And we had a band. We had a Greek band. And in fact, the band that played for us was his first gigs really, and he was Taiki in the Grecian Keys, which he's very famous now. He goes on all the cruises and everything, and I guess he's very expensive. And he gave it to us. We'd have $100, and he'd come and play all night with live music. One year we even had a belly dancer, but we almost got in trouble for that.
Why? First of all, why did somebody think to have one?
Well, we decided, my cousin and I, we were like that. So we heard there was a girl at this. There was a bar in James. I can't remember the name of the bar. Somewhere, I think they became 2001 after. But it was a bar, and there was a girl there, and she was going to be dancing, an exotic dancer. So we said we should go up and see what she'd like, see if she's like a Greek belly dancer. Maybe it'd be good to entertain. Because every year we tried to make it bigger and better every year. So we did go, and it was funny because we had the Balkan, the dancer, and she danced all around. She did really good. We hired her, and she was very inexpensive. She never done anything like that. So she came and danced. But what happened was, some of the men that were there had too much to drink, and then the belly dancer was dancing. They were all trying to dance, so their wives all got mad.
Well,
I know. Can you imagine that? They didn't like that.
Yes, I can. That's
But
fantastic.
we really had a good dance. We really, really went out on that Balkan dance. Terry went to, where do they have the grapes now? Not Westfield, South Dayton or somewhere. They used to have a grape festival. I think they still did up until just a few years ago. And they had lots of decorations, grapes and everything all over that she would, and he went up and asked them if we could borrow them after their festival was over, and they did. So we had all these grapes that we'd hang, and we built a gazebo-like. And so we put this settee in it and everything. We had the grapes, and everybody came and people dressed in gowns then. It wasn't like, it was and of course it was open to the public, so we had many, many people, the mayor and everybody would come. And you could bring your own bottle and your own snacks if you wanted. We had a few Greek delights, but other than that, everybody had their own. So, and everybody sat at the tables, and the whole Crystal Ballroom was full. And we'd have the dance, and like I said, everybody was dressed. They'd go pose under the gazebo like it was, like they were in Greece. It was very nice. It was like a beginning of a Greek festival. After we stopped the Balkan dances, Greg came to the Balkan dances. Yeah, Todd, I'm sure did then at that time. Yeah, but it was a big community thing, really. It turned out to be a community, which is great because it's helped us for our like the Greek community. We're very small, but we're kind of well known.
Very well known.
Yeah,
certainly. Well, so, sure, absolutely.
Athena, do you remember what year you started the Balkan dance?
Gosh, let me think. I'd say maybe in the early '60s.
Oh, that part.
Yeah.
So that kind of was a prelude to what we now know as the Yasu.
Yes,
Festival.
right. And then when we had the Balkan dance for many years, and then they decided maybe we could do something else. Father Raphael wanted to do the festival. He said, "Why don't we do a big festival and make it?" At one time we used to have like bingo, in support of the church by bingo, but he didn't really like us having bingo, so he said maybe we could do something else. So we started out small, kids our age, but now his generation children are in the Greek church because the Albanian church doesn't have very many people anymore because they haven't grown like we've grown.
Right.
Yeah, the people that were there, the first or second, third generations, have tried to keep it together. There's like a small group, like Shirley Lepcheski, and there was Martha Vangel. They kept the church going actually with the help of the diocese to keep it going, because as far as the Albanian church over there, the Albanian church it wasn't there though. It was down there in Sprague Street, but it was the first Albanian church in America.
Really?
Yeah. So they don't want it to close,
Yeah.
even though there's very, very few people there.
Curious about, you're part of the Detroit diocese. So
Right.
when you need a priest, does the Detroit diocese provide that
Provide it,
priest?
yes.
Or do you have selection?
No, they provide it. In fact, that's happened right now. Father Jared was here. He's been here for 3 years. He was our new priest after Father George, I forget. Yeah, Service. Yeah, Father George Service was here for almost 10 years after Father Nick died. And then Father George came. And then he moved away. He asked for a transfer. He got older. He just recently passed away. And so we had to get a new priest, and we've got Father Jared. And he's just stayed for 3 years, and it was time for him to move on. So now we've had a new priest that's just been here less than a month. Yeah, so, and the bishop, they decide, they send it. We do have a decision. They send the priest and see how we like, and the board gets together and decides how, will he fit in our community. And if he can fit into our community, it's good. And I think Father Soter now, I just met him myself on Saturday when we had the baptism, so. But we have a say, but not really,
Yeah.
to a point where
You
they.
got a veto, probably.
Yeah, yeah. You'd have to really, if the parish didn't, they don't really parish, the assembly, the parish council decides, they decide what if they feel fit in and not, and it works. We don't, very rarely we've ever rejected a priest, not very many times, I think. Most of them we've accepted,
Questions you have? She's good. She's really good.
She's great.
Oh, yeah.
You are. It's very.
You could tell me, I could probably talk forever. In fact, I was telling the girls when Father Jared first came here, he felt he didn't, know a lot of people, so he'd come to visit me here and we'd talk, and I'd end up telling him, then he'd say, oh, it's something about so-and-so. I said, oh, they were from where, and that. And before he knew it, he said, yeah, I know everybody now.
Athena, I do have, one question.
Sure.
Did you ever ride the train with John Regas?
Ride on the train?
With John?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
no,
Because he'll speak to that also.
Yeah, no,
He
yeah.
was riding the train.
Yeah. We rode the train, but it was at Olean. We took the train from Olean to Jamestown.
Okay.
when we'd come and visit,
I
you
would
know.
have thought it would have somehow, I mean, that doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Great.
Like I said, the priest came to visit us, so we stayed part of the community. That they were like a visiting priests, really, you know. So they didn't want people to be too far away from the church. There was a few people in Olean that were Greek people, but they belonged to the church, like the Pappases. Their father, I remember Mr. Pappas and Mrs. Pappas, mostly Mr. Pappas, because he was a Greek man that used to come, but he came to my dad's store. He'd come every day for a Bruma-Seltzer. And he'd come to the store. My dad would watch when he'd come, and he'd start mixing the Bruma-Seltzer, and he'd sit at the counter. Yet he was a Greek man, and my dad didn't. He spoke a little Greek, but he didn't speak much Greek. But they were quite close friends. Mr. Pappas was there for a long time. Yeah, he came to the store every day for a Bruma-Seltzer. Yeah.
I'm gonna recommend, this is a postscript.
Okay.
You don't need me for this one. You're gonna get a list of names of members, former members. And you're gonna, because she is so good, you're gonna rifle through those names. I mean, go, boom, the Deppuses, the
Yeah.
Demases, the Constantines. Give me a story, give me a story, give me a story. I'm telling you, she's it. And,
I don't know.
I would highly recommend that, and that's the prompt.
Yeah.
Gotta give a name. I
Yeah.
could start down the
You-
road, but I would fail miserably. Just to let you know, because some of them have heard the story, but my mother, my family, the Carlsons, lived on Chapman, 28 Chapman, which is right nearby, and so
Right. Yeah.
really good friends with the Constantines.
Right.
And my mother would often go to church there.
At St. Nick's.
Pardon?
At St. Nick's.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And then they would likewise go to the Chandler Street Baptist Church,
Yeah.
which is my mother, so.
Yeah.
And they had the city market, my
Right.
grandfather had the White Carlson's.
Shop there. Yeah.
shop there. So there's a lot of connectedness
Oh,
in my
there is.
family with the Greeks, and so often when
Yeah.
I can remember more than enough times when the Constantine family, all of them would come over to my.
And there was a
mother's
big
house.
Constantine family too.
Huge,
Like in
huge.
our Petro family, we were 8. The Constantines were 8, and they were quite strict in the family and the faith. You know, we did everything socially. The church was our social.
Sure.
Really, you didn't really, like some people say to me, didn't you have a lot of friends in school when you went to dances? I said, no, really. Sometimes, especially girls, when we were young, we were really allowed to go. You know, it was kind of a, you know,
Yeah.
say you got to stay close to the church because you got to marry someone from the church. And of course, no, the boys in the church didn't want to go out with the girls from the church because if you went out on a date next week, you had to get married. They'd say, oh, you can't go out with someone without.
Get serious.
Yeah. So,
But I would recommend that
I
highly.
have another question.
Sure.
Sort of along that line.
Camera's running.
oh dear, my brothers is running too.
Honey, what do you remember about the Papa George family?
The Papa Georges. I remember Ted Papa George was the father,
Yeah.
and the mother, what was her name? I forgot her name now. But they had 3 kids, and they were raised in the church too with us, the same little Papa George, because there was a boy and 2 girls.
Right.
Yeah, but I can't quite remember their name. But she moved down south somewhere after George died, or was Ted died, and then she stayed with the church for a while. But then she moved where her daughter, I think one of the daughters were or the son, one of them, and but she still always kept in touch with the church. And I think Cindy with Papa George was the oldest.
Ted's
Yeah.
wife's name was,
I'm trying to think. I know. I keep thinking Celia, but that was George Tuga's wife.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And they were part of the community. She was one of the young girls that they married. You know, sometimes they would marry girls from out of town. They had family. You know, they'd introduce them, the Albanian girls to an Albanian boy. So, you know, yeah, it was kind of old fashioned, but you know, that's the way it was. We,
Sure.
you know, like I said, like each one of the grandparents, like Constantine's, they were 8 of those, but the girls were all raised around. But the grandmother and grandfather, and the grandmother, and they had an older grandmother too. You know, they kind of ruled, and you did whatever they told you to do, and whatever traditions were. Especially traditions were real important. You know.
did they go so far as arranged marriage or just?
Yes, no, arranged. They did. Yeah, they had
Really?
arranged marriages. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there was quite a few people that had arranged marriages. They tried to, fix up a girl with a boy, or if the boy wasn't happy. They kind of knew each other anyway. I mean, the families were, you knew them. But if they married girls from out of town, I think Athena was from out of town. I'm trying to think. Thoma and Athena. Yeah, no, I think she was here because she was in the Albanian church. She was one of the young girls in the Albanian church, yeah. And then they used to have socials too in those days. I can remember when I was young, with a festival, but then it turned out to get bigger and bigger, and now it's
It's certainly a community event.
it is.
Do you remember the fire?
The church fire? Yeah, I was never there at the fire. I think it was before we moved here. In fact, I have one of the icons in my room downstairs there, one of the icons that was in the fire. And what happened, our icons used to be long and thin, and because of the fire, some of them were ruined, and so they tried to put them up, but then they cut the icons. And of course what happened was everybody got all upset because they cut the icons, because the people were very religious and very, or if they thought it was afraid you cut the icons, it would maybe be a sin, So when we built the new church, they brought them over, but they made them round. But the people weren't satisfied, so they said, no, we can't have that. We have to have new ones, because we didn't want to have the ones that were cut in the icons. And so consequently, we got all new ones, and then we hired the new church. It took a lot of years, and we finally got enough to be able to get stained glass windows. But the big day when we built the new church, that was very, very. Of course, it was right in the same place. We just walked right next door. It was right. The old church was right there, and there was a driveway, Chapman Street, I think, is it? And then we built the new church right there. And then of course we had it round and put, it's kind of close to the cliff, which it's kind of disappointing. They should have built it up farther, but we had some families that who didn't want to have the church right in front of their house, so they moved it over a little bit. So over the years, it's been a kind of a problem because the hill's starting to deteriorate, and that if it had been right in the middle, it would have been good. But then we wouldn't have been able to have the festival there.
Do you remember the day it was the ribbon cutting when it was open?
The church? Oh, yes. Gosh, that was a beautiful sight. I can't tell you the date, though. I really can't remember the date, But everybody there, went from the old little church. Everybody walked with the priests and all the little boy, the altar boys, and all the people. They all walked to the new part where the new church was going to be built. And they broke the ground there, and to start the new church building there. Yeah, it was a big, big thing. Lots of people, everybody, and it was. Then we had. Then after the church started, they got it built. Then we had to open the church, and that's when they had the ribbon cutting. But we didn't do a ribbon cutting. The bishop came, and they had to consecrate the church, and they had to have it. And they had two. I think they were Albanian men. I forget which they were. Mr. Depis, I think, one of them. They became, I don't know who, they were the godparents of the church to open it special, and they put, holy water and everything to open the doors of the church. And then we came in, and it was very sparse for a long time. We didn't have rugs. We didn't have anything. We had to, build up our income. And finally, it's surprising how many people worked on it. Yeah. And then that's when we did have bingo for 10 years, and we made money in the bingo because we were at a small bingo, and there was a lot of people liked to come to the church. They used to say, everybody's so nice here. We like to play bingo at St. Nick's, And so we had it for 10 years, and so we made enough money to pay the mortgage off, 10 years early, And it was basically 10 people that did it, that stayed and worked every Thursday we'd have it. And the same people would work the bingo, certain guys, and the ladies would take care of the kitchen, make sandwiches to sell. And so it worked out good. So then after that, then Father didn't like to have the bingo there, so we stopped it. And that's when we started talking about the festival.
When you were going to the church in the early days,
Used to come, and they'd have lots of dances to get people together. And they'd come to the dances. The Albanian girls would come, and the Albanian boys, and after the war, they knew these girls and knew who they were. So yeah. So yeah, it's amazing to
You're
see.
gonna do her, I'm telling you, just get the list, get the 1960 census, I'm making this up, of the church, the 60, there's gotta be some thing, here's the families of the church, and have you talk about all of them.
Talk about them. Oh my goodness.
No, I'm serious, this is how you get this
This
down.
is our history.
Yeah, but I hate to be talking about
We're not
someone
talking
else's. I hate to
about
talk
them.
about other people's things.
you
You
don't
know,
have to.
just I'm just talking
It's not
about
as bad.
general things.
Not
I
bad stuff.
yeah. No, I wouldn't want to say anything that had anything
But
to do with
you're
it.
the only, you're gonna be one of the few, I don't know, I'm sure there are others, but sources of, because if you don't share that, if you don't share that, nobody will, and that'll be lost.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the Dutch uncle here, because, having done a lot of
Yeah.
interviews, but you're a pivot point.
Really? Gee,
Honestly.
gosh, thank you.
You're impressive,
Well,
very impressive.
Like I said, I don't want to step on anybody else's toes.
You're not
Yeah.
gonna tell war stories.
No, I wouldn't want to tell stories on people. Just the people.
No, but they would know a little bit
Yeah.
about them.
I
Where
suppose
they're
if you could even pitch into anything, even like say you took Johnny Deppes or Louis Deppes and just asked them something about their childhood, would be the same kind of story as mine. You know,
I know Louis too well. I
Yeah.
mean, it would be different.
yeah.
See, I played softball way back when Greg and I played together.
Yeah.
When he was on the dark side of things.
Church name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Played St. Nick's all the time.
Yeah, St. Nick's, we were
Who was
good.
the pitcher? He was older guy. He was was it George, Nick,
Donnie.
Donnie Deppes.
Tony Deppes was the catcher, and he was there. But Tony managed him. But there was a pitcher. He was a much older guy, but he was good, just darn good. It'll come to us.
Yeah.
Our advanced ages, we both played at.
Church League, we used to go to all the games for the Church League because St. Nick's was pretty good on the
St. Nick's
Church
was
League. They were one
very
of the
good.
best players.
They were good recruiters.
Yeah, Donnie was Donnie. In fact, they had a couple of boys that were Italian boys that would come, and they were Greek for a day when they'd come to church. They had to come to church, certain Sundays, and they'd come.
Pete Demas. and-
Yeah. Of course, Pete was is Albanian.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had a similar guy on. I played for CMA, and I as did Greg, and but I wasn't a member there, so I was one of the recruits.
Yeah, you always got
But
to be.
the Donnie Deppes of that group was Dewey Westerberg.
Oh,
Louis.
yeah.
So they recruited.
Yeah, you could
recruited a
recruit.
few
They could. All
folks.
you had to be is pretend you were Greek for a day,
Louis.
and we would have those boys would come to church too.
Well,
Yeah.
you could get away.
Yeah.
They had three guys. I'm digressing completely, but they could get three people who were non-church attendees. Okay,
Uh-huh.
three people. So they were just not there. But the attendees was the key point. So if they found some guys like a couple more, they didn't want to use that 3 slot. They just tell them show up.
Show up and
Now you're an attendee.
now you're an attendee of the church,
And you're
right?
now part of the membership.
Yeah,
That's
you could
supposed to
play.
be
You
good.
could play on the teams. Yeah.
I was a recruit by Dewey, with Kenny Martin and a couple other, one other. And then all of a sudden, Dewey wanted somebody else who was really good. So Greg, you gotta show up to church. And then I had to sign in
Yeah.
that I had showed up to church. So I became a missionary alliance for a couple of years.
Yep.
Well, see, I remember those boys too. The Butterfaro, he was.
About a barrel.
Yeah, they'd come to church. They became part of the church, really, though. They did. Even in the Greek dancers, sometimes we have some girls that didn't really belong to the church, but they liked the dancing. They liked it. And they joined and they've enjoyed being Greek dancers for all this time. Yeah. So it's interesting. All churches' history is very interesting, and it's just the way you grow up. And I've said so many times. Our life was surrounded by the church. Everything we did was in the church proper. Our families, whenever we had any parties and everything was all socialized within the church, and traditions of the church. Easter time was a big important part of the church. We color the eggs, or we do that. Or if a baby's born, you make certain things. The little donuts,
Right.
pétulas. What do you call them now? The pétulas we call in Albanian, but the little donut holes that Liz sells,
Yeah.
the madias, they're kind of like that. But when a baby's born, they make it. You used to bring it to the house, make it for good luck.
Well, it's a good thing Greek food has no calories.
No, it doesn't
Right.
have any. I know it.
Right.
I had no calories at all. I know it. That's why the other day after the baptism, my sister-in-law gave me a big tray of baklava. She said, "I thought you could take it. Maybe some of the people there would like it." I said, yeah, I guess they would. So I brought it, and I tried it out. Before I was passing it out, some people had never heard of it before. It was surprised. Oh, I was surprised they didn't even know what it was. But it was good, yeah, and they loved it. The ones that took it and didn't know what it was loved it.
It's not the like, right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
that's-
one of the girls said
that's
to
a
me,
guaranteed
she
win.
said, I went on a Greek cruise once with my husband. She said, I know what baklava is. She said, so then I gave her a piece. I said, do you want a second piece? She said, no, I better not. No, she said, so then yesterday she said to me, I wish I had taken that second piece. That was the best baklava I ever had. And that was my sister-in-law. See, they've even learned how to make all the foods too. And they, so.
Way better.
Yeah, they do that. My brothers are lucky they know how to do it all, because I can't do it anymore like I used to. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope it gave you some information. I
Oh,
hope it wasn't too much.
You're a treasure
No, it's
trove.
wonderful.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they'll be back.
Oh,
We'll be back.
We'll do a follow-up.
okay, sounds okay.
You
Well,
did.
good.
Thank you, honey.
That was great.
Well, I don't know how I turned out on tape. I hate to think. Don't show anybody else.
Yeah, you did great.
It'll be on YouTube soon.
Facebook video.
Oh,
Nice
dear.
job, Greg. I was taking pointers.
What's that?
I was writing down pointers. You did a nice job.
Thank you very much.
I'm repeating myself, but if you don't do that, shame on you. She's a resource.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
there's gotta be like a 50-year anniversary booklet.
Oh, yeah, we
and
have
in
that.
it, it's gonna have the list of the names.
Yeah. We have those. We have all those books, you know.
So sure.
Well, I had them at home, all those books, but I don't know what ever happened to them, you know, and they cleaned the house, I'm sure. There was a few things they took, but I kept every time we'd have an anniversary or anything we
Sure.
had. Yeah. We'd have a lot of things. Do you remember when Stan Lundeen, he would come to a lot of our functions. We'd have him at the hotel. We always had big bishop dinner or whatever, and it was, you know.
Those Albanian or Balkan dances, that was when I first started dating Christina.
Right,
and,
right.
Of course, I was so struck by the sense of family and
Yeah.
community. And
Yeah.
it was, everybody knew each
Everybody-
other and visited each other every Sunday. And it
Yeah.
was just so,
It's
it was
true.
just a one big family.
It's a good thing that you're part of it, and you remember
Oh, it was
joining
great.
that part, yeah.
It was amazing.
Yeah, it was. That's like I've said so many times, that the church was the center of all our social lives and everything we did. And everybody knew everybody. Everybody was family, which
Sure.
is good, yeah.
Sure was.
Well, thank you very